Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are at. Hope you're having a fantastic day. It's SoulSaint here, and I want to talk to you guys about a particular event that's currently active when it comes to Yuletide. And if you haven't heard anything about like the Yuletide event, then it's a big deal, only because of the fact that the very last reward you can get for it is Torment, who is in and within itself an epic, or sorry, a void legendary champion. And also kind of someone that I think would be worth investing towards. I'll be real with you. Now, with that being said, we've been exposed to a lot of different events, whether it's like excessively large point requirements from, you know, champion training, artifact enhancement, so on and so forth. But we've also gotten hit, similar to our previous Halloween Titan style event, we've been exposed to tournaments that are faction related, right? So in this particular one that we just got up, I think this is our first one of this particular Titan event, is going to be faction ShadowKin, okay? Particularly in arena. Now, I wanted to take this opportunity, instead of just showing you what I'm going to be using and how I'm going to be using it, I wanted to point out, in tandem with that, I wanted to point out some champions that may be worthwhile for you to look out for, that maybe are acquiesceable, or someone that you may have been able to stumble upon in terms of your luck being pretty much good there. So I'm actually going to go top to bottom, and believe it or not, Lady Mikage actually is one of the first ones that I would say that's going to be a pretty valuable champion to work off of. And the reason why is, not only does she have the ally attack feature, as well as the ShadowKin faction, you know, being able to ally attack with her A1, as well as the entire party with her A3, she has a lot of utility that brings her up to prominence, whether that's her decrease in duration of any buffs on your team, so kind of like a pseudo cleanser, as well as an increase in duration of enemy debuffer. So pseudo debuffer in the sense that you're not only putting those debuffs that are already on them up a notch, you know, that's basically what you're getting value out of. Now, not only that though, she actually has a lot going on in her second side of her kit. So being able to sleep an enemy while also decreasing the turn meter is very, very strong in case you need just a little bit of a stopgap in between. You're very close. Think about Sun Wukong, who likes to respawn a lot off, you know, every other 3 turns. So you can pretty much sleep him and decrease his turn meter so you can get ahead of him, or leave him there so he loses that turn, then kill him again, then wait for him to show back up, and then rinse and repeat, right? It's an option. It's an option. As well as being able to straight up just stun him and reducing the turn meter by 30%. This is actually a pretty strong ability that I think a lot of people are starting to realize the power and potential of. So it's really, really strong. Increased accuracy. So this actually kind of plays a benefit for champions that are trying to do a lot of debuff-oriented type of damage or something around those lines. So I want you to think about your bombers, for example. So like any type of champion that does bomb type content, or like, you know, like your Nishaks or whatever, they actually benefit from having this increased weekend that she can kind of set up with, right? All very, very strong. It makes her very, very valuable. Being able to decrease the turn meter of the enemy with the highest attack. So if you're going against like attack, or like that Georgian, for example, bringing down their turn meter by 15% is very, very strong. This champion is really, really good as a utility type champion. I do think that she can do some decent damage, but I think for the most part you're looking for the utility you can get out of her, right? With that being said, reigning over to another utility champion who also is a turn meter booster or speed champion, Lady Kimmy. Increased speed, increased accuracy, all really good. Block bust, really good to kind of hinder your team from being buffed up to a point where they can be formidable. Filling turn meter, that's a big one. A lot of teams nowadays are either using turn meter manipulation, or they are trying to survive through that, you know? So like this is actually one of those coins, one side of those coins. Being able to place decreased accuracy and decreased speed while also decreasing turn meter. I've gone against plenty of Kimmies who have just constantly cycled and were able to slow me down while the rest of their team is getting boosted up into infinity and beyond, and you're getting outpaced, and that's not a good thing, right? Sometimes it could be the very thing that gives you your win, and sometimes it may just not be enough, but that depends on the rest of your composition, right? So with that being said, being able to attack the enemy with the highest turn meter, as well as the enemy you choose, will give you a chance to be able to have decreased turn meter fill, excuse me, and it just gives you a lot of power. Although her aura isn't really strong for like arena type content, it's really good for Doom Tower, so that's a nod to that if you're ever interested in using her in that direction. But a lot of value out of just being able to go fast and reduce your enemies' turn meter to give your team a chance, right? So it's very, very strong. In terms of survivability, I'm actually going to go ahead and give a nod to Kyoko, who is like one of the champions I would give a nod towards in terms of like a go second strategy, you know? Kind of has that upgraded version of that Seeker passive, being able to do a little bit of decreased attack, HE burns if it does land, ally protection while block damaging herself, so she absorbs a portion of the damage, but she also doesn't take that damage. It's very, very valuable for a champion like Kyoko. And then also having a heal, which is kind of a little underrated depending on how you want to build her up. Now, these champions, they all kind of get involved in a certain capacity, right? I mean, I can keep going on and on in terms of like speed with Shuzan, being able to speed people up, slow your enemy down, inject them, block active skills, very, very valuable, right? All these champions do the kind of stuff. I will say, however, you may not have access to every single one of these, so I'm going to bring it down to earth a little bit more, right? In terms of champions and synergies, like, for example, I have a Mishinaki who I'm going to be trying to use today, as well as Jintoro. I actually would be interested in considering using someone like Hotatsu, who actually provides increased defense. It's kind of like a setup buff for my Mishinaki, as well as a heal to kind of keep the battle going if we have to go to the battle of attrition, right? To increase attack and leech, as well as being able to remove some of these debuffs that you may experience while you're being in the middle of battle, you know? Those are really, really good ways to approach it. You could technically use, and let's talk about nukers for a little bit. You could technically use that Gimbo that you may have gotten from like a prime drop, or maybe you got him from shard pulls yourselves. This is a very, very strong champion that once he's up and running and he's got the engine going, and if you built him well enough with Unsavage, you know, some damage dealing based gear, he's going to do really, really good for you in terms of like just being able to pack a punch, right? Now, I won't lie, you kind of hear about these champions quite a bit, but they actually provide you a pretty solid reference point in terms of like utility and control. Like, I'll give a nod to like Burangiri, who has the ability to do an AoE stun. Although it is at a 60% chance, it's still pretty strong if you're able to get it, especially against positive affinity champions like Spirit champions. Being able to provoke on an A1, and as well as providing that strengthening and shield, which could be a little bit more of what you're looking for in terms of providing that additional support in case you have to take a little bit of damage. On the flip side of that, we have someone like Taragi, who also provides increased attack, but an AoE provoke, depending on how much debuffs you have. So if maybe, for example, you have like a Rio and you put like a lot of debuffs on a particular champion, and then you try to go for that provoke, it's going to have a heightened chance of provoking because of those debuffs, which means that you're not only locking them down and putting CC on them, but you're locking them down even more, and it can be really annoying, right? As well as being able to provide ally protection, shields, and reflects damage. It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous how much you can get out of those type of champions. Now, Battle of Attrition. If we're talking about getting hit and you may lose a champion along the way, someone like Kinagashi, someone who provides a res, as well as an increased defense, and with 50% turn meter. Not a bad option to consider, as well as being able to team up with, and although it's a random ally, having a chance to being able to team up with your team may give them just enough of an opportunity to be able to just slam into, you know, it could be your actual nuker that's joining you in that fight, and that could be the thing that turns the tide. You get that extra little bit of damage in, you end up killing somebody along the way, right? So that's good. That's very, 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 very positive, right? Being able to decrease turn meter yet again. A lot of turn meter manipulation, as you can see in this faction, right? There's a lot of opportunities. Gory could be a nod towards like being able to freeze a couple champions here and there, even though it's at random, so that's something you got to keep in mind. And then being able to just keep yourself in the fight or play around the fact that you're dealing with a faction-oriented one. I always gave a nod to like Tomoe, who has to do a lot with like ShadowKin factions in general, where, you know, they provide buffs and they do things, but they provide even more buffs if they're ShadowKin faction. It's really, really good. Increased crit rate if they're also from faction. Like, it's really, really valuable in terms of what this particular event is, right? Decrease attack on all enemies, making sure that you don't take as much damage, and then, of course, being able to steal buffs here and there from a chance park of 50%. Very, very good champions. I, myself, personally, I'm just going to give you guys a quick nod. I do have a little bit of, like, a luxury on the top end side, so I am going to be rocking with Jintoro as one of my damage dealers, Mishinaki as a strip utility / damage dealer, Yumiko, believe it or not, as my utility lockout, and since I don't have, like, crazy amounts of, like, turn meter controllers and boosters, I'm actually going to go with Hotatsu for the extra sustain and increased defense. So, my goal, and this is the recommendation I'm going to have for a lot of players if you're listening in, we have about let's see, about 3 days and 11 hours to do this. What I recommend every player, if you're listening, if you happen to watch a little old me, set your defenses down to 0. I mean, like, this is one thing I would say as a community we should consider rallying around. You don't have to at the end of the day. This is your choice. You know, you're the big boss of your own account, right? But set yourself to single target defenses, and that's what I would look to snipe out first and foremost. Take these champions, find these teams that have single target defenses that are easy to get, and just slowly make your way through it. You don't have to aggressively push yourself in this fight, in this particular event, this particular tournament too aggressively. I would try to like just pace yourself, and wherever you can find these little small victories where you're going against champions that are, you know, one and done, you could try taking them on and seeing if you can find a win, right? So we'll lock him out. He's gonna get his damage in, but we survive it, right? Because we're using defense champions, right? So all this is going to help play towards getting that effort in. Now, keep in mind, the more progressive, the more developed your team is, the better it'd be. For me personally, I'd probably be willing to drop someone like Hotatsu for like Lady Kimmy, for example. Maybe place one of the other 3 that I have here in the lead role so that I get better, you know, benefit from their aura, since Kimmy's is Doom Tower related. Or maybe even like frontline with Yumiko to make sure you land those debuffs or the lockout that you're looking for. A lot of opportunities in that regard, right? Now, I am going to try taking a full-on team. This is actually one that has like a little bit of a synergy with couples when it comes to Juliana on the same team. So this will be very, very interesting. If I am fast enough, I'll be able to lock out. If not, we might take a bit of a punch, and this might even be a loss. But I'd be very wary about certain teams. Look for those kind of meme-ish teams, the teams that you know that you'll be able to beat quite often, and try to find a victory with it, right? I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to take a little bit of a gamble here. Let's see if we can get ahead with Yumiko, and we sure did. Now, that worked out pretty well for us. Now, with that being said, my big goal is going to be to try to knock people out as fast as possible. So we're going to start aiming for our positive affinity type players in this team. So let's go ahead and start that off. I'm going to go and start getting some damage in. We did take a little bit in there. Looks like my Hotatsu isn't really that geared well, so like it's very possible he's going to get hit first, which is okay. Remember, they're locked out at the end of the day. We already got a little bit of going on for us. I used Yumiko's A1 to decrease the turn meter if possible. I'm going to aim for the one with the highest. We got a lot of it down. We got an ally attack also on top of that too, so very, very good value. And then at this point, just go for the clear. Let's see if we can get as much damage and get the victory as best as we see fit. Get some more turn meter reduction down. He did get his turn, but we are tanky just enough to be able to get the kill, get the win. That's pretty much what you're looking for, right? Now, I know this seems kind of meme-ish, and I will say this. If you don't have these champions, it's completely understandable. Some of these events are a little bit more of a trial and tribulation about how well established your account is in terms of like gaining shards and being able to pull a decent amount of champions. But at the end of the day, it's always working with what you have, not complaining about what you don't have, right? So I'm utilizing what I have. Literally, my Gintoro is my clan boss champion. My Yumiko is actually designed for PvP, so that's a nod. My Mishinaki is actually designed towards Hydra, and then Hatatsu is there for Faction War, just to be an extra spacer whenever I was using him. So very, very difficult to kind of like say that it's very easy for players to get through this content. I won't lie, depending on where you're at in the game, whether you're early, mid, that's going to be very difficult because your champion pool isn't as expansive. Even as someone who's at late game transitioning towards end game, it's hard to say because I don't have the craziest champion pool to say that this is all freeload. Now, mind you, like I said, my strategy is to find the easy teams and find my victories as best I can. Get in, get out, and then we keep it moving, right? That's the plan. So my goal would be to encourage you players that are listening in, if you do have a little something to work with and you are participating in this event, try to find your victories here and there. And then from there, if you have plenty of refills to work with, you know, at the end of the day, you're farming for your Grey Hall, so it's always a victory there. Try to find the easy teams, get those done too as well, and then just wait for your refresh. Wait for that refresh to come in. Find your next solution of single target champions. Squeeze it in when you can. Rinse, repeat, and then eventually, before you know it, you're going to be in there. I've done one particular match before this one ended, before I started this video, excuse me, and I'm going to show you where we are at now with just a couple of runs that I just did while we were recording this, and I'm already at 100. If I can rinse and repeat that about 6 more times, I'm pretty close to getting the snow tournament points that you're looking for the Titan event, right? Now, if I want to go even further beyond and try to get myself towards half of Primal, then by all means, you could do that. Just add a little bit more on top of that, right? So you're looking at 8 turns, 8, maybe 9 if you want to round it up, maybe 10 to give yourself a little bit of a breathing room, depending on like how close it takes to you get that 60. You know, basically, in a long summary words, what I just did, multiply that times 10, you'll definitely be there. You know what I mean? Like it'll definitely get you there. So a couple fights here and there. Now, I won't lie, I believe that this scales off of how and what placement you are in your rankings, which is why I recommend players try to sit yourself pretty cozy in 4, go 5, because the points scale up. Now, if you're able to do this in Plat, then by all means, you're God tier. I bow to you. You know, you can do it. But more teams, often than not, they're not really bothered by participating in this type of stuff, so they probably may not have their defense up. And who knows, maybe they do have the team that just like, all right, well, I'm just going to switch on to my OP ShadowKin team, and I'm just going to run it down. Who knows? We'll have to see. But with that being said, let me know, how are you guys going to participate in this event? I will say this, for those that are interested, the Yuletide event so far, to me, hasn't been too tedious, too daunting. I won't lie, some of the point requirements were a little more demanding than usual, kind of on par or on pace with that of a Fusion, which can be kind of disheartening depending on how you look at it. But at the same time, too, giving yourselves, or giving us as players, a guaranteed Void Legendary at the end of it all, makes this a very, very fortuitous event. And I'll say it like this. More often than not, you know, being able to get a champion, the demand, the requirements, at least particularly for someone like me, when it comes to pulling Void Legos, it's not clear cut and dry. I've gotten lucky with a couple, I won't deny it, but at the same time too, you know, we had to go the distance with Mercy, and that's something that a lot of players may not have the luxury of getting to very often, right? So the fact that you're able to utilize resources and assets that you already have, quote unquote, to get towards a Void Legendary is a W, right? I think we view this event as a W. And any of the extra amenities along the way, I definitely think that like milestone 1 and 2 were a little lackluster and compared to like, you know, we don't really, at least where I'm at in my account. That's my disclaimer. You know, rank 3 chickens, not really that big of a deal. I get rank 3s from just pulling mysteries, for lack of better words, you know, getting my occasional rare or just farming up food, you know what I mean? It's very easy for me. Multi-battles, you know, we have RSL helpers, so I typically sway to that. Whenever it's down, though, I do use them. So, gems, we always use the gems as a victory. XP boosters are a victory, although they're the unsung heroes in a sense, right? Mortal Soulstone coins, are actually kind of a lot more valuable than people are going to give credit for, especially when you're first early in mid-game. You may not see this on your purview, but as you transition towards late game and end game, you're looking for quality, right? To be honest with you, throughout the course of this game, I kind of preach this whole quality over quantity type approach when it comes to whether it's your Great Hall or the nutrition of your characters, you know, going with 550s versus 160s game changers. There's a big difference, right? The same is also true when it comes to building up your champions, right? It's not, there's no point in you having a bunch of like okay built champions versus one really good one when it comes to like, you know, you have like 5 nukers, all of them are kind of like but if you were to like take bits and pieces of every one to build one really strong one, that one could naturally carry you in like PvP content, for example. That's the point I'm trying to make, though. You know, like, it doesn't hurt to have diversity. I'm not denying that. But the goal should be to have quality of diversity, right? So you're going to have to work your way up to that. And I perfectly get it if you're not fully there. It's something that, you know, it's a part of the journey, right? Now, with that being said, all the other resources are really valuable. You know, you got Immortal Soul coins, even more, the upgraded version of it. You got oils, which are another thing that's down the road for mid to late game players and forward. You're going to see a lot of value out of oiling up some of your gear to get that extra bit of stat bloat that could give you the next plateau, right? Rerolling gear with ores is never a bad thing. Primal Shard, which is actually kind of a nice little nod. We're getting a shard per milestone. It's small, but it's still something, you know, and I think we're grateful for it. Haze glyphs, big W. That's something that you can't really rush, so it's a big value in terms of being able to get glyphs. Gems are always nice. You can convert those into shards or into energy. You can do a lot with gems, so gems being a universal asset for every account makes sense, right? Brews, not as valuable. They can come clutch whenever you're in these tight moments where, like, maybe you neglected your champion training, you need to get on top of it. This could be the thing that can help you push it towards that finish line, right? Essences, similar to the soul or the mortal coins, they're very comparable in that same regard that the like early game you may not see the value of it and you may not be able to farm effectively towards it, but as you progress into like mid and late game, particularly around late game onwards, you're going to start seeing a lot more value out of getting your blessings upgraded because you're going for that quality upgrade for your champion that you hopefully choose right towards, right? And then, as always, getting the extra superiors, that's a lot too, by the way. It does take a good bit of time to farm, and you're at the mercy of RNG to get, you know, lessers, mediums, or highers. Even at stage 25, which is where I farm at, you know, you still have a chance to not even get a single one from a particular run. So getting that straight up is nice. Getting a Haze Glyph, really nice. At 6-star, really nice, right? Legendary or 6-star, very nice. This Milestone 5 is mint. The only thing I would give a knock towards would be XP barrels because they're not really hard to get towards, but that could be very valuable if you're in a hurry and you're trying to get something going as soon as possible. That game changer champion, maybe that Duchess you're sitting on, you know, like, I get it, right? At the end of the day, though, all these are very valuable assets. In terms of the events and whatnot, I do think if we saw this for PvP, I think the expectation will go that if we have any future events revolving around any of the other dungeons, expect there to be one that's going to be dedicated towards doing maybe Fire Knight or Ice Golem or Dragon with a particular faction. So brace yourself for that. It's going to be very important to make sure you're able to do that. But at the end of the day, as long as you're careful with it and you're doing whatever you got to do, you'll eventually get there. And I will also say that we get like a base 500 points from daily logins from when this event started to the very end of it. You'll be able to collect at least 500. So that means that if you're trying to get through this entire Titan event, you're already 1/5 of the way there as long as you're playing the game daily. So, you know, you can't skip on some events. I would just be very conscious of how much you're skipping. I believe that the announcements that they made is that you can get up to 2,500 points. So anything that's like 500 points or less in terms of the combination of events that or tournaments that you want to skip, by all means do that. I'm going to play the frugal route and or the more aggressive route, and I'm going to try to get done most of it early so I can skip the later portion at the end, and then I'm coasting, and then I can enjoy my torment and the extra rewards I got along the way. So try to do as best you can. I hope this video helps you at least in some capacity as some key champions or some noteworthy champions that are worth looking to. I didn't want to talk about the OP stuff like the meta. Harma obviously is very strong. because I didn't get her. But like, there's a lot of champions that are very, very valuable, and you can find your answers depending on how you look at it. You know, I give a nod towards Tomoe. I'll even say that, like, depending on how you look at it, Adachi, for example, is a really noteworthy rare that's worth looking into at the very least. You know, there's a lot of opportunities here that can give you something if you play it right? And the main thing is just to know your limitations, and then try to find your solutions with those limitations in mind. So, you know, you could be with your Mishinaki a, you know, Chinoru who is only by herself, level 40, not even fully ascended. Like, this screams like, all right, that's a free fight. Go get those fights. That'll add up over time. Remember, we got 3 days and 11 hours plus at the time of this recording. So there's a lot of opportunity for you to be able to get there, right? Just be frugal, be attentive, maybe be on top of that 15-minute refresh so you don't spend too much on your gems, and enjoy the ride. You know, it's going to be something that's going to be, you keep your eye out for, is basically the way I would say. That's your cheat code, is just where it's free, grab them. When it's not free, you're chilling, and then you go and do something else. Like, for example, you know, you may be needing to farm a little bit more towards that Fire Knight that's ending tonight. You know, you got to get that last little bit that you need for that 5,000 ore. You know, we're gonna go for that, by the way. We got 1,000 more points to go. But with that being said, let me know what you guys think. If you're gonna participate on it or you're gonna skip it, let me know. I'm very curious to see where you guys are plug and playing or picking and choosing your battles. And with that being said, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and always remember, stay ascended.